No update on the day of our first class that we're doing. For those of you that do need CEs, of course, we've got our objectives, and there's my information for those of you that are not familiar with me, but I saw lots of familiar faces on here. We're going to start with just the basic, what is dementia? Because even people who's been living this for some time now, I will hear, sometimes even in support group, people will misuse the term. We will use dementia like it's a synonym for just a synonym for memory loss. And it isn't. There's so much more to dementia than memory loss, as the majority of you know. We're going to look at that. And then we're going to talk about that communication. It's not a specific disease. So the biggest question we get all the time, number one question, what's the difference in Alzheimer's and dementia? Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. Alzheimer's is the most common cause of dementia. So Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. But there's over 100 different types of dementia. We tend to see 5 to 8 of them over and over and over. Alzheimer's being first, vascular dementia, Lewy body, frontotemporal, Parkinson's disease dementia, alcohol-induced related dementia. There's lots and lots of different types of dementias. So Alzheimer's is the number one type, the most common type of dementia. So here's 2 sentences. My loved one has Alzheimer's, but they don't have dementia. That's false. But people will say that a lot. They've got Alzheimer's, but they don't. Yes, they do. They've got the most common type of dementia. My loved one has dementia, but they don't have Alzheimer's. That might be true because they may have vascular, Parkinson's, Lewy body, or one of those other over 100 different types of dementias. So let's look at what exactly is dementia then. There has to be loss in cognitive functioning that interferes with a person's daily life. So there is something called mild cognitive impairment. And when a person, if they'll go to the doctor, if they'll start getting, if they realize something's wrong and they go and they get tested and they get diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, it means that there's some cognitive functioning issues, but it has not interfered with a person's daily life to the point that they can't function as they normally function. When it crosses over to dementia is when it starts interfering with our daily life and our daily activity. And there's so much more to it than memory. There's actually about 36 common symptoms to dementia. All of the dementias, they don't all progress the same way, but the majority of them have the same symptoms. Now, is everybody going to have all of these symptoms? No. Are they going to progress in the same way? No. What comes into consideration? Their age, comorbidities. There's many things that come into consideration. But is memory the first? Yes, typically. Now, 2 types of dementias that can present with no memory loss. Frontotemporal Lewy body can present with no memory loss. It's going to come later. So memory loss, that's what I was saying. People will use the word dementia like it's a synonym for memory loss, and it's not. Dementia is a cluster or a group of symptoms. Thinking and reasoning, we usually see that pretty early. The ability to have good judgment. Focusing and paying attention. It's like all of a sudden there's a shortened attention span. Language, which is what we're going to focus on today. Personality and behavior changing, the ability to take care of themselves because they can't do things in order anymore. There's too many steps to brushing my teeth. There's too many steps to getting dressed. That's sequencing. And they'll get the steps out of order, or they just don't do it at all because there's too many steps. Sensory input and motor output, and then movement and coordination. They're going back to who they originally were. A person with dementia is doing something called the theory of retrogenesis. They're going back in time. Who were we originally? We were not walking. We were not talking. We were not toileting ourselves. We weren't feeding ourselves. That's where we're headed. We have to understand that to better be able to go on the journey with our loved ones. This is how we treat dementias with education. It is a very individualistic disease. If you've seen one person with dementia, you've seen one person with dementia. This particular picture we use a lot. Now, this particular picture is somebody with Alzheimer's disease, but the majority of the dementias progress in a very similar way. What's happening in all of the dementias is the brain is failing. So that brain on the left is a normal 3-pound brain with no dementia. The one on the right is a 1-pound brain of someone who died at the end stage of Alzheimer's disease. How can we expect the person on the right to act, behave, speak like the person on the left? We can't, but we do. They didn't do anything to make this happen. We don't know why does it happen in some people and not in others. We don't have those answers yet, but until then, we do know it is not a normal part of aging. Make sure you heard that. It is not a normal part of aging. Memory loss is not a normal part of aging. Slowing down is. Where's my keys? I can't call my grandkids every single name of all the grandkids till I get to the one, but I know. Slowing down is a normal part of aging, but actual memory loss is not. We have to learn a skill set we didn't want. And it is a skill set. And we are right here with you to help you learn that skill set. Jamie's also going to send you information about our support groups and about our YouTube page. If you haven't discovered our YouTube page yet, we've got dozens of these type of videos on there. So let's start out by talking about communication and what it is and what it isn't. And I want to point out something. Communication is verbal and nonverbal. Of course it is. Think about that little teeny tiny little baby that's born. Can they communicate? Yes, they can communicate. Can they make their needs known? Of course they can make their needs known. Is it in the same way that we do it? No. Communication becomes very difficult for a person with dementia, and let's look at why that is. Communication centers in the brain, they start to die. On the left side of the brain, this is our day-to-day language. Here's a way to remember it. Teepa Snow talks about it this way. Left language leaves. Left language leaves. That's day-to-day words. I can't find the word. You know the thing, the stuff. You know the thing and the stuff. You know that thing. That's pretty common early on. Progressing to something that we call word salad. And then the thing. And you do it, and then you do it, you know, no. Word salad. There's some words in there, but there's lots of vague language, single phrases, sounds and vocalizing, not being able to make their needs known. However, here's something else. Teepa Snow. We said left language leaves, right rhythm remains. The right side of the brain is the rhythmic side of the brain. I hope you thought of music when I said the word rhythm. Singing stays, humming, automatic speech, rhythmic language, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, that word no is going to stay. It's one of the first 5 words we learned, and it stays with most everybody. But then there's some special words that when we were really, really little, we heard these words. Somebody told us not to say them again, so they didn't store on the left, because that's our day-to-day language. They store it on the right, and that's curse words, sex talk, racial slurs, forbidden words store on the right, and they will remain. And people who've never, ever, ever said them might say them. Not everybody's going to. But if your loved one who you didn't even know knew that word suddenly says it, that's why. They're not being ugly. They're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. This is the language center right here. This is an actual picture of the brain. Really look at that. That's a hole that we're looking at. So You may be thinking, but it seems like sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. That's exactly right. Because it's not like that just all of a sudden goes away. Connect, 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 miss, connect, miss, connect. And eventually I'm going to miss completely because it's gone. It dies. So what makes the connection? I slept well last night. I got up and it's a sunny day. I ate my breakfast. You're in a good mood. I took my medicine. Whatever's on the TV or the music's playing, it all is well. And I can get myself dressed today and brush my teeth. But it storms tonight and I didn't sleep well and it's dreary today and you're in a bad mood with a furrowed brow and I'm not going to eat and today I can't even put my pants on. Yes. But tomorrow I may connect. You're not doing it on purpose. Two parts of the brain, the amygdala and the hippocampus. The hippocampus is dying. Hippocampus is dying. Day-to-day language. The hippocampus plays that role in memory, navigation, and our emotional responses to things. As we are, think it back again to that child under the age of 5, how they're learning to control their emotions. A person with dementia is unlearning everything. So to get a need met, I may have what looks like a tantrum. To get a need met, I may withdraw what looks like a pout. I'm trying to get a need met the best way I know how with a dying brain. Compassionate communication. This is where the amygdala comes in. Their amygdala remains intact. It's damaged, but it remains intact. And the amygdala, feelings and emotions. Feelings and emotions. They can read your body language, your facial expressions, your tone, your emotions, how fast you're talking, even after they don't understand the words. Because they can read emotion because their amygdala remains intact. Damaged, but intact. That's why, let's do it 2 ways. They've had a really, really bad day. They wouldn't get in the shower. It's been 2 weeks. I'm frustrated. They're frustrated. We both end up crying. We have a big fight. And 6 hours later, they're still in a bad mood, but they don't know why. Because the memory is gone. I don't remember we had the fight, but the feeling, that heaviness is there. Now, same thing. We had a great day. You brought me ice cream. Everything is right with the world. We're listening to music, we're dancing, and it's 6 hours later, and I'm still happy. Things are going great, but I can't tell you what we did earlier today. Even though you made a big deal out of Christmas and it was wonderful, and we opened these gifts and all was well, I don't remember that, but I know it felt good. Amygdala and hippocampus. So keep those things in mind. We've got to start to read their body language. We want to do lots of compliments, lots of praise, lots of smiles. Connection. Compassionate communication and connection. We've got to get rid of distractions, get rid of clutter as best as you can. If you are approaching someone with dementia, approach from the front. Don't come up from behind. That's a great way to get an elbow. All of their senses are changing. So you might be talking from over here, but they're not even hearing you because they can't see you. Come from the front with your palm up because this looks like a choice. This looks like a grab. So good to see you again today. Just about everybody's going to take that hand. Now I got them. That's a grab. That's a good thing to hit. Get you out of here. We never, ever want to use the word remember with somebody with dementia. That, in fact, that's the one word we need to forget. But it's the one word, especially if you're early on this journey, that we tend to say all the time. Remember yesterday remember, I've already told you, remember, remember, remember. They don't. That's why they have dementia. or that's why they live here or in some other facility. That's why they've been diagnosed. They don't remember. And if you say it louder and slower, it's not going to make them remember. It's just going to trigger that amygdala. Now I'm upset. Now you're upset. And where are we headed now? It's so good to see you again. Not, remember I was here yesterday. I just said again, you know me, and I'm smiling, and I called you by name. You know me. It's a skill set, and it takes a while to learn. Everybody's communication is only 7% words. 7%. 38% of communication is our tone of voice, and 55% of communication is our body language. Had somebody on support group. I've been running support groups now for well over a decade. And I remember someone on support group. She came on at one time crying because now I'm having to help my husband toileting. We talked it through. She came back and with tears, she was still crying, but she was laughing. She said, it is amazing how much better toileting goes if you just sing. We just sing. And so he's so concentrating on the song, he's not thinking about what I'm having to help him with. Because a person with dementia can only have one thought at a time. And if we can get their thought over here, that I can do this. I also had somebody tell me they could get a shower done in 3 Elvis songs, that they'd set the CD player up in the bathroom, they hit that Elvis CD and got their loved one to singing, and they are going to just concentrate on the singing, but we can multitask. And I can sing and wash at the same time. So about 90% of all communication's nonverbal. That doesn't go away. We have to start using a lot of visual cues, gestures, and demonstrate. A person with dementia well into the disease will mirror your actions. So if they are having a hard time, let's say brushing their teeth, and we're going to stand and I may pick mine up and put on the toothpaste, and muscle memory will kick in because this is muscle memory. They've been doing this for a long time. But what do I do with all this stuff on the counter? Well, we have to accommodate the disease. We have to go in and clear off the counter and put down the toothbrush and the toothpaste, take it away. Bring in the razor and the shaving cream, take it away. Bring in allow them to remain independent and keep that dignity. Don't just take over for them because it's easier on you or because it's faster. We have to accommodate. Demonstrate each step. If you're needing someone to sit down, pat the chair, smiling, sit here. I just gave a command in 2 words. And I sit down also, and I'm patting the chair, sit here. I could have been speaking a foreign language and done that to you, and you'd have known what I meant. Think of it that way. We do not ever want to argue with someone with dementia. You're not going to win. And if you ever do, let me know, because I'm going to work on a PhD, and that's going to be, because it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. We're not going to win an argument with somebody with dementia. And why would we do that to them? And why would we do that to us? Because we're not going to forget it later. And then we're going to have that caregiver guilt that we already have plenty of. We talk a lot about that in support groups. We're not going to remind them that they forgot. That's where we use the word remember. Question their memory or take it personally. Now, this is hard. They're not doing this to you. It's happening to them. But it can feel very personal, especially if they use our name when they're saying some of those things. That's another skill set. That's something else that we have to work on. You are not reasoning with your healthy loved one anymore. We try to reason, argue, confront, because we've always done that with our spouse or our parent or our brother or sister or friend. We can't do it anymore. That was their healthy brain. This brain can't do that. We've got to slow down. We smile a lot. We're going to take the blame for an awful lot also. We use lots of I'm sorries. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you, even though we already told them 40 times. I can't believe I did that. Only give that needed information, and throughout the disease, the further along they get in the disease, it's going to take longer for them to comprehend. They're going to hear it. It's got to process, and then they will do what you ask them if they understood it. Give them up to 20 seconds. That's a long time. And as the disease goes further in, it may be even longer. I've seen people fall, hit their face, and then put their hands out. Because that's how long it took their brain to say, I'm falling. I need to. Let's do it together. And here's the great one. I could use your help. I could use your help, because now you're making it about you and not them. You can't seem to get them to do anything. You're asking them, well, they can't tell you what they want to do because they don't know what they want to do. I could really use your help setting the table. Could you help me over here folding the clothes? And they will likely say no, because that's where it's going to stay. But I'm going to go right here in front of them and just start doing it. Because most people with dementia, if you go up and say, do you want to? They're going to say no. What do you want for lunch? Open-ended questions aren't going to work. We sure don't want to hand somebody with dementia a menu. But you know what? We do hand them a menu, but then we say this, I'm going to have the hamburger. It's good. What do you think? But then they feel like they made the choice. Or depending on where they are in the disease, you might go, they've got a really good chicken fried steak and that hamburger's good. Which one do you think? And then read their body language. And then you might say, I'm having the hamburger. Because most of the time they're going to say, I'll have what you're having, whatever you're having. So I could use your help. Let's do it together. They don't remember that they don't remember that they don't remember. That's why they've got dementia. They also don't remember your reassurances. So we have to keep saying them. Now here's our favorite word. Our favorite word is going to be okay. Because okay does not mean you're right. Okay means I heard you. This is validation therapy all over. And it doesn't matter what they just said. You're the one that stole all my money. Okay, let me call the bank. Now, am I really going to call the bank? No. I'm going to fix it, but I'm going to fix it with a therapeutic story. Some people call this a lie. Alzheimer's Association calls it a fiblet. God knows the difference. Because I'm going to pick this phone up right here. Whoops. And I'm calling something. If I'm here at work, I might call front desk and go, hey, is this the bank? Somehow my name got on Mr. Smith's account. Can you get that fixed for me? And look, I'm mirroring what he's feeling. I'm not happy right now. I'm mirroring him because he's mad. Good. I'm glad you got that fixed. Woo, I'm glad we got that done. Now, come on. And now I'm going to distract. And what do we distract with? Food. The sweeter, the better. Music. Their music, preferably from the time they were between 10 and 25. That's called our music set. So the music we listen to as teenagers, animals, and children. Now, listen to those 3 steps again. We're going to validate their feeling. Okay. We're going to fix it. And you may have to fix it with a therapeutic story. And then we're going to distract them. And part of the distraction is moving to another area. Because if I stay right here, they're going to do something called a loop. And in about 20 to 40 seconds, they're going to say, You're the one that took all my money because I didn't finish this. I called the bank. Good. I'm glad we got that fixed. Boy, I'm glad we got that fixed. Come on in here. I just got some more ice cream. Or I think I hear, is that popcorn I smell? Use the senses somehow. Sweeter the better. They're losing their taste. Taste is changing. Sweet stays in almost everybody. Their music, real animals, real children. If you don't have real animals or real children, go on YouTube, type in children laughing and get some ice cream. You'll both have fun. Or baby animals falling down. That's fun. But move. You've got to move from this location to that location. Active listening and validation therapy. Validation therapy. We are not going to try to reorient them to our reality. We are going to theirs. It's unrealistic to think we're going to bring them to our world. Time is very, very different for somebody with dementia. It is not sequential. That is why they may look in your face if you're the spouse and say, "You're not my wife. My wife's not old." Because in their mind, they may be 30. Or they may be 16 and they don't have a wife. Because I told you they're going back to who they originally were. And I haven't always had grandkids or kids or a spouse, but I've always had a mom and a daddy. I may have always had a brother and sister, cousins, grandparents. So it is not uncommon for our loved one to look at us and call us someone else's name, or to call us mama or nurse or teacher. Here again, talking about validation therapy, when we use words like show me, what does the thing do? Think about the feelings. If the person with dementia is saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, it's not right, it's not right, it's not right, we can say back to them, what's going on here isn't right. This is frustrating. We're validating their feeling. We're not coming up and saying, oh, don't worry about it. We've got it. Here, go sit down over there and watch TV. That's not validating their feeling. That's saying, you're in my way. Go sit down and get out of the way. And they're going to hear that, or they're going to have that feeling. Validation therapy is where we accept their feelings, even if it has no basis in our reality. We enter their world. Those people upstairs kept me up all night. Well, there's not an upstairs, but I'm not going to tell them that, because that's being reasonable and rational. They kept me up all night too. Can't believe it. I'm going to go up there and talk to them. Come on, let's get in here and get us some breakfast. I got us some coffee made. Validated the feeling, fixed it with a story. Distract. We've talked a little bit about this. Tell me more. Can you show me? Use their words and gestures and mirror them. I am so sorry. I know this is hard. Accept their emotions. They are valid to them. That makes me mad too. I'm sorry. I was trying to help. I know this is hard. I'm sorry that happened. You notice I'm sorry a lot. This is going to reduce their stress, prevent withdrawal. They are valid. They mean something. You learn how to communicate with somebody who at some point may have no words, but you can still communicate with them. We're going to skip this example just because of time, but you're going to get this entire slideshow. So think about this also. They're saying normal things and doing normal things for someone with dementia. They're not crazy. They're not lazy. They have no control over the disease, and you don't either. But you can control how you respond. Notice I changed it from react, because you can react. But if you will take a single really deep breath, you're more likely to respond than to react because you're educated now. You didn't know what you didn't know before. Now you know a little bit better, you'll do a little bit better. You're still going to have times where you're going to say or do something because you're going to react. But hopefully from this moment forward, you're going to respond. So here's the summary of that. And then we're going to jump into the stages of dementia. Validate the feeling, fix it with a therapeutic story by going to their world and by trying to not get emotional, and then distract. And the 4 things to distract with: food, music, animals, and children. Food, music, animals, and children. Let's talk a little bit about the earliest stages of the disease. We call this stage normalization. Normalization. We want to do everything we can to keep their life and their world as normal as possible. We're going to use a lot of reminder setups and cues. Reminder setups and cues. They likely can still read and comprehend during this time. We're going to put sticky notes. They may put sticky notes. We're going to label drawers. We're going to put labels on things. It's all good. If it allows them to continue to know where their socks are or to get the forks out, get the label maker and put them on there. Now, keep in mind, at some point, they're going to be able to read the words, but they're not going to understand what they're reading. They will be able to read longer than they'll be able to comprehend. But typically early, they can still read and comprehend. During this time, they may start being resistant to care. And because they don't understand, they'll become frustrated. They have anxiety. They have depression. This is all a normal part of the earliest stages of the disease. Antidepressants, anti-anxieties, not only for the person with dementia, but also for the caregiver. Very, very normal during this time. We got to get through it. We're going through it. We have to. We don't have a choice. They are also coping with their losses. You are coping with their losses. That's called grief. We have to start understanding what we're feeling. This feeling we're having is grief over the loss of someone who's still alive. It's called ambiguous grief. We're losing them a little bit at a time. So we're losing the relationship the way it was, and we're grieving it. And it's very, very real. You need to be able to say that. I'm grieving. This is grief. Grief is not necessarily death. Grief is loss. They're going to lose things. They're going to put things in the most bizarre places. You will keep finding stuff for years, probably. Do not donate any clothes that you don't go through the pockets, and don't donate any books that you don't thumb through. I promise you. Other things that happen early on, they may use humor or they may use anger because they're trying to cope. They are less aware of body and space. They might not recognize pain the way that they did before. They're going to rely more on visual gestures. They may be confused one moment and not the next. It literally isn't day to day or hour to hour. It can be minute to minute. And mood swings usually stem from frustration. So in those earliest stages, some of the things that we could see and some of the ways that we can communicate. This is where we're learning. We're learning. I mean, through the whole time we're learning, but we're really learning early on. We've got to be really, really patient and start limiting their choices. This is a good time to clean out the closet and you may have to go in and say, what shall we wear today? It's really cold. The blue sweater or the red sweater? And if you get a blank look, I like the blue. And they'll probably tell you blue or point to it. Now they made the decision. You made the decision, but they made the decision. But you gave them a choice. That's just like we talked about with the menu. Inform them of events as they occur. Whiteboards work really well for a lot of people in the early stages. If you put a whiteboard up on the wall, and if they're really to the point that they're asking you over and over and over the same questions, especially if it's about when is church, when are we going to lunch, when's so-and-so coming, check your whiteboard, check your whiteboard, check your whiteboard, Check your whiteboard, same word, same tone. Check your whiteboard, check your whiteboard. Now, eventually that whiteboard's going to become something to draw on. It's not going to mean anything. It may just be something that we do an activity on, but that may work for a long time. Focus on the activities they still enjoy, but are you going to be able to ask them? Probably not. We're going to the golf course. They'll let you know if they can still do it or not. And you may go from playing golf to just being up there and putting around on the little putting course or just walking the course. But we're going to try to keep normalization as long as possible. Speak directly to them, allow them time to process, don't interrupt, watch your tone. Even early on, we need to start breaking things down into small steps, even things like getting in and out of the car. Your loved one may go out to the car at some point, not know how to get in the car. There's a lot of steps to getting in the car. Don't push them backwards into the car. Some people have an easier time getting in and out of the back seat than the front seat. Back seat in the middle is a good place to be because I can't reach the doors and then you can see me if you're driving. Arguing is not going to help anybody. Nobody likes to be told what to do. Sometimes, though, they will do things from a person in authority, like a doctor or a nurse, or even just somebody in scrubs. We've had our maintenance director go in with a lab coat on before and tell someone they needed to do their therapy, and it worked because it was someone in authority. Doctor's orders, something written on a prescription pad, things like not driving, that's important. Taking medicine. Doctors get it. Get them to write things down for you. In those earliest stages, if you do not have paperwork done, advance directives, excuse me, powers of attorney, thinking about the future, got to talk about it now. Don't wait, because we don't know when they're not going to be able to talk about it anymore. And then let your kids know. Let your support team know. That might be your brothers or sisters or your neighbors or church family. Don't pull away. You've got to nurture your relationship. You can find yourself becoming a caregiver, and that becomes your identity as caregiver. And you lose being a wife or a husband or a daughter or a son or a friend to caregiving. Throughout this whole time, you keep making the connection. Middle stages of the disease. This is the longest stage of the disease in most everybody. So we're going to continue to work on normalization, but now this is supportive. So we call this stage the supportive stage. They're probably going to need help with everything, but they can still do a whole lot. That is why we say in all stages of the disease, focus on what remains, don't focus on the losses. Recognize the losses, grieve the losses, but don't focus on the losses. Because if we focus on the losses, you know what that is? That's the past. And when we focus on the past, there's a name for that. It's called depression. When we focus on the future, there's a name for that. It's called anxiety. We've got to stay really, really present. So common changes that we see in the mid stages. They're going to start to lose more of their fine motor skills, which is going to affect the ability to take care of themselves even more. They're going to have trouble with naming objects, recognizing familiar faces. Now, they're always going to know you're someone important, but they may not be able to say the relationship. They may not be able to say the name, but they know you're important. They will always know you're important because of that feeling. The amygdala is there. That looking in their eye is there. That does not go away. The bond does not go away. During this middle stage, they are going to need help with bathing and grooming and dressing. You still want to use cues, setups, and reminders. Let them do as much as they can. They're going to start having major gaps in memory. They may start to use confabulation, and some people call that lies. There's a difference in confabulation and lies. Confabulation is where somebody comes in my office and starts telling me about their degree in physics and they've never been to a college campus in their life. They're just having a conversation with me. They're confabulating a story because they see a degree on my wall. And so that social part of them goes, well, we can talk about this. And they make up a story. That's just confabulation. They're not out to get anything. They're not trying to fool anybody. You can use that to your advantage to still be able to chit chat and banter. Now it's going to be different. They're going to be disoriented to time and to the past, present, and future. Sometimes it's interesting to ask your loved one what year it is and see what they tell you. Don't fix it if they tell you it's 1972. It's interesting because that'll give you some answers. All of the senses are going to have changed by this point. All of the senses. And Jamie mentioned earlier, we're going to have Dementia Live online. I would encourage you, if you have not done Dementia Live, to do that. We do our best to give you dementia for just a few minutes so you know what it feels like with the senses. We focus on support during this time. They're not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. Some of the other things that change. We really have to slow down, start using 2 to 3 word sentences and come to their level. I'm sorry, I went too fast. Yes, no questions. Don't pull away. It's during this middle stage that lots of times we stop touching except for care needs. And this is when they need us to touch them even more. For love, palm to palm, compassion, caring. I mentioned earlier that theory of retrogenesis, going back in time. What do we do when that 5, 4, 3-year-old is sad, is hurt, is confused? We hold, we pat, we rock. Look what I'm doing. All of this is very rhythmic. Rhythmic right remains. You may find yourself sitting, holding palm to palm, or just patting, or singing something over and over and over and over and over and over, and it's bringing them comfort and reassurance. I'm not alone. And it's very important as we move into the late stages. We need to touch more, not less. They need to know they're safe. You're their safe person. I've had so many families come and tell me what an intimate time the late stage of the disease can be. If you're educated about it and you understand what they need and how to do it. So late in the disease, this is a sensory stage. All of those senses are still working, but they've changed. So they can still make their needs known. They'll always be able to, but it's going to look really, really different than what it looked like at the beginning of the disease. They may have 10 words or less. One of those is going to be no. And a person who's in extreme pain, they may be furrowed brow, deep frown, holding their stomach. Are you hurting? No. They're telling you, yes, I am. Help me. They don't have those words. Those words are gone. They're telling you with their body. You have to read their body language. During this time, again, they very likely are not going to be recognizing family and friends, but they will know that you're someone important. They may regress to childhood days. Now, as the disease progresses, I want you to think about an infant. How much does an infant sleep? Up to 20 hours a day. And a person in the late stages of dementia may sleep up to 20 hours a day, and it's okay. It's okay. They're not going to eat as much because they don't need as much. Food is fuel. And you don't need a whole lot of fuel when your body's starting to slow way down. Dementia is a terminal illness. If they don't die from something else, they will pass from end-stage dementia. The brain's dying, and the brain tells the body to do everything, including metabolize food and breathe and swallow. Fine and gross motor skills by the end of the disease have been very, very affected. They very likely are no longer walking. It is common for someone with dementia to have a lot of falls mid to late, just like we had a lot of falls when we were learning to walk. There's a lot of falls as they stop walking. That's something we hear from families all the time. I need you to guarantee my loved one's not going to fall. Well, I can't. Can you guarantee that a 3-year-old won't fall? No. They just have a shorter way to the ground and they got a big old diaper to cushion their bottom. They're going to fall. And there's dignity with risk. None of you would want to be bubble wrapped and laid back in a recliner for the rest of your life. And we're not going to do that. There's dignity with risk. You may see a person late in the disease doing something rhythmic, like rocking back and forth. Some of you may be doing something like that right now. Maybe your legs going up and down. Maybe you're doing a pin back and forth. You know what you're doing? That's self-soothing. But we don't think anything about it when you do it because you're going to do it in a subtle way. A person with dementia may be doing it like this. That's not hitting. That's a rhythmic motion that they're doing over and over and over again, and they don't have those social skills anymore to say, that's probably not appropriate at the table. Self-soothing. Or I'm picking at something. So what do? I need to get them something to do that's rhythmic. What if I get them a fidget blanket? What if I get them a fidget mat? So they can do the same thing over and over and over and over. They make those specifically for people with dementia. We've got to use a lot of nonverbal communication at this point. Music is really, really important throughout the course of the disease, but especially at the end stages. That may be what you do with your loved one, is listen to music and hold hands. Time doesn't mean the same thing to them. So they may be able to do that for 3-4 hours. We're the one getting frustrated. They're fine. They're fine. I had a student one time who we went through an orientation, taught a lot of this. And when she wrote about her experience here, she said the best time she had was with a resident who was holding her hand, rocking back and forth and going, for over an hour. Think of what he was doing with her in that moment. He was safe. It's the same thing as if we were rocking that baby and humming. They're comfortable, they're safe, they're warm. I'm with someone that cares about me. Time doesn't mean anything. And for that young woman, there was no cell phone, there was no TV, there was no stimulation. And she got to see how important it was to make that connection. The environment and our approach is what usually about 80% of the time can cause an unwanted expression. Notice I didn't say behavior. Behavior sounds really negative. The environment and our approach. So watch the environment, watch your approach. This is how we treat dementia. We're doing it right now with knowledge. You're building your skills. Quality of life is what we have to focus on with dementia. I hope that as you learn more, you realize with dementia, it is about quality of life, not quantity of life. Focusing on their abilities, not what they've lost. You've got to commit, be flexible, practice, and have compassion. And we're going to end with this, and then I'm going to